Currently topping the chart. Unemployment seems to be the common denominator and the unseen trigger. So today, we'll take a look at solving the unemployment equation in Nigeria and the Southeast. You're tuned into Urban Radio 94.5 FM Enugu. This is the Parliament. My name is Favor Eko Ibe.
All right, I'm Uche Gabriel, and welcome to the Parliament to talk endlessly about insecurity, insurgents, hardship, and not talk about what causes it is like treating the symptoms and not really tackling what generates it. And after proper diagnosis of the problems bedeviling the nation, it is clear it will get worse if something creative, something innovative is not done and urgently to the issue of unemployment. Joining us this morning to discuss this is someone who has the exposure to see how it has been done in other climes, who has experience because he has been in business for over 2 decades and counting. Tony Odukwe, so good to have you on a Monday like this.
Always a pleasure to be here, Uche.
All right, Uche Gabriel is my name.
Yes, glad to have you once again to lay the foundation for this very conversation. Would like to understand whose responsibility it is exactly to create jobs. Is it the government or the private sector?
Basically, it's everybody's job. Okay, solving the unemployment equation should be a public-private partnership project. Okay, because government has a major role to play. But the private sector as well has a role to play. But the problem is that we are all resting on our oars, and the private sector is slacking because the government is sleeping, right? We need to lay a little background and kind of follow the history to understand how we got here.
Yeah.
Before the discovery of petroleum, crude oil in Nigeria was doing well agriculturally, agriculture is very important to any economy, to any nation, because you have to feed your population, but most important for populations that are large, right? And so we were doing very well, and that's why I hear people talking about the granite pyramids all the time, talking about the palm oil coming from the southeast and universities. There's an old man, a veteran politician that comes here all the time. I've forgotten his name.
Just go on.
Yeah, well, he talks about it all the time, how universities were built, from resources, gotten from agriculture. But you see, there's something we call the resource course. And you find that in most countries that have natural resources that are really, really financially, profitable, and you find that in Venezuela, you find that in South Africa, you find that in DRC, you find that in Nigeria. So all of these countries that have either diamond or petroleum turn out not doing well, because what happens is that the politicians get lazy, right? And so that's exactly what happened to Nigeria with the discovery of petroleum. We all gave up on agriculture. We gave up on all of the resources that we had and still have and stopped exploring them. We started getting the easy money. Okay. And so that easy money made our politicians and policymakers lazy. And so everybody gave up on other sectors that should have, created jobs for our people. And that's basically how we got here. Now, the other thing is, last time I was here, we talked about the HDI, the Human Development Index. Nigeria is ranking very low. That means that with all our universities, we're still not able to bring out real professionals. And so if we lack professionals, we lack decision makers. We lack people we lack people who know how to run nations, how to run states, how to, develop, a country. Okay. And so basically that's what we are suffering from. Policies, bad policies. So every money that Nigeria has made in the last 60 years came from one sector, and that is from petroleum. And so we left agriculture out, we left the solid minerals out, we left every other sector out. And so to solve that problem, there are a number of things we must do, but we will get there. But to answer your question, it is a partnership that must come between the government and the private sector, because what moves the economy forward is the SME sector, that is the small and medium scale enterprises. In any economy anywhere in the world, that sector is the one that drives the economy. And so if government does not give that sector an enabling environment to be able to thrive, they won't be able to employ people. If you help them thrive, they'll employ labor, because they employ the most labor anywhere in the world.
All right, she's definitely going to get to that SME part, but
Yeah.
Even in the family, everybody's job never gets done.
Yeah.
Everybody's job never gets done by anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say it's everybody's job, it becomes a little bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
So let's put it in perspective. What is really the job of a government, and what is the job of a private sector?
Great.
So that we can share the olu.
Yes. Great question. So basically, government, like I said, has to create enabling environment for businesses to thrive, right? So in the area of policies, that's the job of the government first, to, create great policies that move economies forward. Right? Nigeria is suffering from bad policies, and that's as a result of people in government not supporting. People in government shouldn't be there. A lot of people that are in leadership positions in Nigeria should not be there for any reason, because they're just not qualified for the job. I've heard somebody say that to become a medical doctor, you have to go through school 8 years. Right? To become an engineer, you have to go through school 6-7 years. Right? All of these professions require for people to go through school, and after you've gone through school, acquire experience that helps you excel in that area. But then in politics, everybody gets up and goes into politics. A tout who we know on the streets doing, toutish stuff, all of a sudden, because he has a godfather, becomes a local government chairman. He doesn't even know how to write a proposal. He doesn't even know how to veto one, but all of a sudden he gets into a political position because he has a godfather. How do you expect him to do well? So you see, we must ensure that people who are qualified and have pedigree gets into government to be able to create these policies that we're talking about. Now, when we get that right, the next step will be for government to do a number of things, provide infrastructure. Number one, I have said this a million times and I will never stop saying it. The day Nigerian government wakes up and decides to provide 24-hour power, Nigeria will boom. The Nigerian economy will blow off the roof. That is a fact, because every other thing is tied to power. Okay? Industries are tied to power. Small MSMEs, medium small enterprises, MSMEs, however you might define it, needs power to operate. Okay, and so if you do not provide power, you can't even attract investment. So you see, you need foreign direct investment to be able to build industries, okay, that will create jobs. You also need local investors to go into industry setup, right? But if there's no power, it pushes people away. How much is it going to cost me to provide my own power? And so any investor will look at that overhead and say, oh no, it's not going to be profitable for me. And so they walk away. It takes only the bold in heart to actually make that move. A few people have made it in Nigeria, and because of the great nature of Nigeria profitability, they have made profit. But a lot of other people are scared away by that. So government has to provide 24-hour power. And once that is done, you will see the economy growing forward. I also always say that Obasanjo took the bull by the horn and provided the GSM technology. And that in itself drove growth in the Nigerian economy. So I expect that this government or successive governments would actually take the bull by the horn and provide 24-hour power. So restructuring, again, is restructuring the, transportation system. It's infrastructure that is actually needed. For example, you have farmers in the rural areas farming and providing food, but they are not able to transport their food to the urban areas where they can actually convert them to cash. It becomes a problem. And so somebody suffers 6 months to farm something and harvests it, and then the roads are bad and they don't even have transportation to move that stuff. It actually discourages businesses. So policies, number one, infrastructure, number two. Then again, we must also government must also open up the agricultural sector. Because again, there are a number of things I'm going to talk about, but they're also tied to agriculture, food production, and power.
Okay.
Okay. Now, for example, there are a number of businesses that you can set up, but they also depend on farm produce. Okay, so government must ensure that Nigeria is producing enough food for the local populace to feed, but also enough for the processing industry to be able to process foods and export.
It sounds like a tall order.
It's not. It's not. But again, it's because of that problem of depending on oil, and I'm scared that because of our dependence on oil, Nigeria may actually not have GDP in the next 2, 3, 4 years. Okay, because petroleum is not going to be in vogue for the longest time. Electric cars are coming. Okay, and so if people begin to drive electric cars all over the world, petroleum will not be making any more money. And so what are we going to do then? So like they say in Igbo, Tata Bubo, we need to start now, okay, to invest heavily in agriculture, open up the sector, let foreigners come and invest in mechanized agriculture in Nigeria, let local investors invest in mechanized agriculture, encourage them to do that because it's vital. You must feed the local population. Okay.
All right. Talking about policies.
Yes.
That are probably driven. What we have right now are policies that are probably driven by the quest for immediate IGR, but not ultimate economic development of the places. And that's why there are no tax holidays, because most governments are not seeing 10 years from now.
Exactly.
Okay, so you start a business, there's all manner of taxation put as a burden on these SMEs who are supposed to ignite the economy. So what do you say about that?
Again, it's as a result of lack of creativity. Okay, government officials are just not creative. The last time we were here, we talked about government officials thinking that the only way to grow IGR is by taxing the local populace, and just taxing them. You're not providing infrastructure, but you're taxing them. And I said that any government that is taking taxes and not providing infrastructure is a thieving government, is robbing the people. Because the only justification for any government whatsoever to take taxes is that you're actually providing an environment for those businesses to thrive. Now, if I sourced my capital from a bank and you did not play a part in that, and then I went through the stress of setting up my company or industry, you did not play a part in that. And then I employed labor, and you have not encouraged me to employ labor. So everything I have done on my own, and you turn around and take taxes. On what basis am I paying you taxes? Okay, you're saying I have to pay taxes because it's part of the Constitution. But it's also part of the Constitution that the only justification for you to take taxes is for you to provide infrastructure and enabling environment for me to thrive and encourage me to employ more labor. Okay, but what you find in Nigeria is that governments are actually targeting GDP, IGR growth just by stealing from businesses. But let me tell you, if you're a government official, it's simple. It's not rocket science. Okay, all you need to do to encourage these businesses is number one, give them good roads. Make sure that there are enough road networks in the communities. Okay, make sure that find a constitutional way, for example, in the southeast, to provide 24-hour power. Right? Make sure that there is enough transportation, and make sure that businesses have access to funding. Make sure that there are loans available for businesses to thrive. And so if you have done these things, these businesses will not be under pressure all the time. You can actually begin to see prosperous businesses that are making profit. And as they make profit, they scale their businesses and grow their capacity to employ more labor. It's that simple.
And then IGR is increased.
Increased, because what happens, listen, you talked about tax holidays. Now, wise governments would also provide tax holidays in certain areas of investment to encourage people to go into that area. But they are thinking if you provide tax holidays, we're going to be losing that revenue. No, you're not. Because what you're doing is, if you provide tax holidays, the money he would have used in paying taxes, he will use to scale his business and employ more people. And then you get employment taxes from the staff of those companies. And so if you enable him, one business, to employ 100 people and the other 200 and the other 50 and the other 30, at the end of the day, these companies may not be paying taxes, but their staff will be paying, what we call employment taxes, on their salaries. And so government is good for that. Okay, so we need government to become more creative in driving business growth. Now, I was talking about, government opening up agriculture. Why government needs to open up the agricultural subsector is that The farmers are able to produce enough food, not just for the local populace to eat, but for the processing industry. All right. And so that processing industry in itself is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Okay. The other thing government needs to do to encourage these businesses is to make sure that as you encourage these processing industries to set up, then you ban the importation of certain commodities. For example, if you open up the sector that processes meat, and Nigerians acquire the technology that allows them to produce canned beef, canned mutton, canned chicken, and all of that, what you're going to do to help them grow is to ensure that nobody imports the things that we can produce in the country. And so that means the local populace begins to patronize these businesses, and they begin to do well.
All right. You said a lot about education in your previous analysis. And
Yes.
at this point in time, I want to know from your own personal assessment, what exactly, which is more prevalent? Is it unemployment or is it unemployability? Is it that there are no jobs or people who are of employable age are not employable? Which is the more prevalent one?
Okay, it's actually sector dependent. There are sectors where you have jobs available, but you don't have qualified people to take those jobs. Okay, in the oil sector, there are jobs that are available. I know that a couple of years ago, oil companies were needing underwater welders, and they didn't have them because. I mean, does ASUIT provide underwater welding courses? Tell me any school that you know that provides that. So there are certain, specialized, skills that certain, industries need in Nigeria and don't have qualified people to take those jobs. And so that becomes a problem. And but on the other hand, unemployment is high because it's a function of how well the economy is doing. How does economies do well? Economies do well because economies that do well are mostly industrialized economies, companies that have enough manufacturing, industries that employ labor, right? So government benefits from that a number of ways. One, through taxes paid by the employees of these companies and taxes paid by these companies, government grows IGR. On the other hand, these companies export these commodities and earn forex and repatriate their forex, and government is good for that, right? So unemployment and unemployability, both are problems that Nigeria, have today, and we must find a creative way to solve it. And I'm saying it is solvable.
It's solvable.
It is solvable, yeah.